So you have probably noticed in your games that there are these things that are like 3 human skulls and they're like tied together and they have a candle at the bottom of it. And well, these things are called Dole Totems, and when you walk up to them, you see this cleansing action up here. But what exactly are these totems, and what are they for? So these totems are utilized by killers to power specific perks called Hex Perks. Every Hex perk will start with the word Hex, and will include this phrase in their description. The Hex effects persist as long as the related Hex totem is standing. So, basically, a totem that is not empowered is called a Dole Totem, and there are a total of 5 totems on every map. Once destroyed, they are gone forever and never come back. Dole Totems are unlit totems, and they just look pretty normal and average, and cleansing one of these totems destroys it and will award you 600 boldness points. Now these glowy totems, on the other hand, that emit a fire crackling sound effect and are lit, they award 1k boldness when cleansed. Because these are Hex totems, and if you see a Hex totem, that means the killer has a Hex perk. And so, since you are destroying basically a killer perk, it awards more boldness. Another thing to note is that the killer has vision on his Hex totems. He will see them as this orange outline similar to the generators. What is cleansing though, and how do you do it? Well, whenever you walk up to one of these totems, this interaction bar will appear that says cleanse. And when you hold down the interact button, the cleansing process will start. Unlike other interactions in the game, there are no skill checks on cleansing totems. All you have to do is hold down the interact button until the progress bar completes. There is one thing though. If you ever get off of the totem in the middle of the cleansing progress, it is automatically reset to 0. So even if you have the 90% progress bar, if you get off of that totem, it resets all the way back to 0. So you must cleanse totems in one go, or else the progress is reset. Now while you are cleansing a totem, make sure to look around. The killer can grab you off of a totem just like any other interaction. At the moment, there is no way to tell which perk is associated with which Hex totem. You will not know which perk is tied to that totem until you have destroyed the totem. And the killer does not get this information either. He does not know which Hex totems are paired with which perks. Are these totems worth the time to cleanse? Well, that depends. Hex totems are almost always worth the time to cleanse, because by destroying it, you get rid of one of the killer's perks for the entire match. The exception is if the killer is hardcore patrolling and camping their totems. If the killer refuses to chase away from the totems and stays in that area, you are better off just rushing the generators than trying to destroy that Hex totem, because the odds is that the killer will eventually down you because they are hard patrolling their totems, and it can go south really, really fast. I've seen it happen. So if the killer is hard patrolling their totems and hardcore guarding them, you are better off doing generators than cleansing them. Otherwise, go for it, cleanse the Hex totem, and get rid of that perk. But what about the Dole totems? 100% yes, cleanse the Dole totems. Now, if there's a Dole totem right next to a generator, I'd say do the generator first, because cleansing them isn't super high priority. But you definitely want to cleanse as many Dole totems as possible. When I play games, I keep count of how many Dole totems I destroy, and I keep count of how many destroyed Dole totems I come across. And this is because there is only 5 Dole totems on the map, and there is this Hex perk called No One Escapes Death. And what No One Escapes Death does is that once the exit gates are powered, one of the Dole totems will turn into a Hex totem. So this is why you want to get rid of all the dual totems on the map, so that if the killer happens to have this perk, it will not be useful to them. Now, the big question is, how can you tell a killer has a Hex perk? Well, first off, if you ever come across a glowing totem, well, that's a dead giveaway. They have a Hex perk. And every Hex perk needs one totem. So if the killer has 4 Hex perks equipped, there will be 4 Hex totems in the game. If they only have 1 Hex perk equipped, there will only be 1 Hex totem in the game. There is also this Hex icon that will appear on your screen when the effects of the Hex perk are put into play, or you encounter the effects of the Hex perk. And it will remain on your screen until the Hex totem is destroyed. The game will tell you immediately whenever their effect activates. So it is pretty easy to tell if a killer has a Hex perk, because as soon as they utilize that perk, the game will tell you it exists. As of patch 1.8, these are all the killer Hex perks in the game. We have Hex Third Seal, Hex Ruin, Hex Thrills the Hunt, Hex Devourer Hope, Hex Lullaby, and Hex No One Escapes Death. So let's go ahead and see what each of these perks do. Hex Third Seal. Hitting a survivor while the Hex totem is active reduces the effectiveness of their aura reading ability by 100%. This effect applies to the last 2, 3, or 4 survivors hit. The Hex effects persist as long as the related Hex totem is standing. Here's the thing about Third Seal though. It only reduces the effectiveness of aura reading abilities caused by perks. So this is Bond, Empathy, Plunderer's Instinct, Object of Obsession, Kindred, Dark Sense, Alert. Any perk that grants you aura reading ability will be nullified by Third Seal. But Third Seal does not affect the built-in aura reading ability of survivors. So that means people who are in the dying state, you can still see them. Anyone who is on a hook, you can still see them. If you are on the hook, you can still see all of your teammates. So to demonstrate this here, I am in a match here, and I got Object of Obsession. You can see it works. You can see my Bond works. And I go up and get hit by the Third Seal, and then you can see now none of my aura reading abilities work. The Bond no longer activates. Here I have my friend break the pallet, and Alert goes off, but I do not see the killer's aura. And as for Kindred, when I get hooked, my other friend that's with me here said he could not see the killer's aura even though he was standing right next to me. And I assume if I had more survivors in the match, he would not be able to see those other survivors. So yes, Third Seal does affect Kindred. Hex Ruin is a hex that affects the survivor's skills at repairing generators. 2, 3, or 4 survivors are affected by Ruin, which causes good skill checks to result in 5% regression, and great skill checks result in 0% progression. The hex persists as long as the related Hex totem is standing. So you know the killer has Hex Ruin because the first time you get a skill check on a generator, the game will tell you. Now, the most obvious way to tell is that the skill check circle will be red instead of white, and then the game will say Hex Ruin is in effect, and then the Hex icon will appear on your screen. But if Hex Ruin is not rank 3 and you are not being affected by it, the skill check circle will appear white, but the game will still inform you that this hex is in effect during the game. Now, what it does exactly is that any good skill check a survivor gets on the generator will cause the generator to spark, and it will go 5% back in progress. And it will also be delayed a few seconds before progress resumes. If you get a great skill check, nothing happens, you continue working on the generator as normal. What makes Hex Ruin so effective is that a lot of people hit good skill checks and not great skill checks, and it makes it really hard to finish a generator with more than one person on it. Next up, we have Hex Thrills the Hunt. For each duel and Hex totem on the map, gain a token. Gain 6, 8, or 10% more blood points for actions in the Hunter category for each token. Survivors' cleansing speeds are reduced by 4, 5, or 6% for each token. Gain a notification when someone starts working on a Hex totem. The Hex effects persist as long as the related Hex totem is standing. So what this perk does is that it gives the killer a token for each totem on the map, for a total of 5 tokens, because there are only 5 totems on every map. This means you get a 30% cleansing speed reduction for rank 3 Thrill of the Hunt, which is really, really big, and it takes forever to do any totems. Now, the most important thing here is that it gives the killer a notification when someone starts working on a Hex totem. So basically what you have to do is destroy the dual totems before you get to the Hex totems, so that way you will have a faster cleansing speed and you will be able to destroy it before the killer can get there via the notification telling him you're on it. Every time you destroy a totem, 1 token is subtracted from Thrill of the Hunt. Hex Devourer Hope. When a survivor is rescued from the hook at least 24 meters away, Devourer Hope receives a token. Now, Devourer Hope differs a little bit from other perks out there because the effects basically remain the same per level. All that changes is what ability you have access to. So, rank 1 Devourer Hope, you only get the 5 tokens, grants the ability to kill survivors by your own hand. Then, when you get the rank 2 Devourer Hope, you get the 3 tokens added onto the 5 tokens. And at 3 tokens, you get attacks put survivors into the dying state automatically. Then, when you get rank 3 Devourer Hope, they add this 2 tokens on top of the 3 tokens on top of the 5 tokens. So at 2 tokens, you gain a 5% speed burst for 10 seconds after hooking a survivor. Speed burst triggers 10 seconds after hooking a survivor. And then we have, throughout all ranks, the Hex effects persist as long as the related Hex totem is standing. So basically, each rank just adds a token ability. So what exactly does all this stuff mean? Well, the gain of 5% speed burst for 10 seconds. So the killer hooks a survivor. 10 seconds after that survivor's been hooked, they get that 5% speed burst for 10 seconds. So it does not trigger automatically after hooking a survivor. They have a 10-second delay, and then they get the 10-second speed boost. For the 3 tokens part, it's, as it says, attacks put survivors into the dying state automatically. All they have to do is hit you once. Regardless if you're healthy or not, you're instantly down. Now, good thing to know about this part is that the game will tell you that Devourer Hope is in effect as soon as this ability comes into play. So if someone healthy goes down, or if someone even injured goes down, and the killer has 3 tokens on Devourer Hope, the game will be like, hey, that killer has Devourer Hope, this is what rank it is, and then the little hex icon will appear on your screen. Next up, we have the 5 tokens. Pretty simple, you can kill survivors outright by your own hand. This does not work how Moris work. You do not have to hook somebody first in order to kill them. You can just outright kill them if they haven't been hooked. But it still gives you the points the same way it gives you the points for a Mori. So if you kill a survivor that has never been hooked, you may want to rethink that because you probably will not pip that game, or at most you will safety pip if you care about rank. Hex Huntress Lullaby. Survivors receive a 2, 4, or 6% regression penalty when missing any skill check. Each time a survivor is hooked, Huntress Lullaby grows in power. At 1 to 4 tokens, time between the skill check warning sound and the skill check becomes shorter. At 5 tokens, there is no skill check warning. The Hex effects persist as long as the related Hex totem is standing. So Huntress Lullaby is basically just punishing survivors who cannot hit skill checks, and at the same time making it more difficult to hit those skill checks. And last we have Hex No One Escapes Death. Once the exit gates are powered, if there is a dual totem remaining on the map, this hex will be applied to it. While this hex is active, nothing, or successful attacks trigger the dying state automatically. Cooldowns on successful and missed attacks are decreased by 4 or 8%, and your movement speed is increased by 3 or 4%. The hex persists as long as the related hex totem is standing. So, No One Escapes Death is commonly abbreviated as NOED. And in order to counter NOED, you need to destroy all 5 dual totems on the map before the gates are powered. NOED is a perk that can quickly turn a game in the killer's favor in the last moments of the match. And that covers everything you need to know about totems and the hex perks that are associated with them. I hope this video has helped you out, and if you want to know more details about some of these perks, I go over Hex Ruin, Hex Thrills the Hunt, and Hex No One Escapes Death in my Killer Perks You Need to Know About video, which I will link in the description below. Thank you very much for watching. I hope this video has helped you out, and as always, good luck out there in the fog, and see you next time.